Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just. With me today is Mr. John Cameron, author extraordinaire. You know, John, we're going to start off this year with Mr. Richard, this year. Oh, it's going to be one of those nights, John. It's going to be one of those nights. We're going to start off this show talking to Mr. Richard Fields about this off-year election we had last week.
They were quite off, weren't they?
They were off. So let's talk to see what Richard has to say this week.
Hi, this is Richard Fields with this week's Report from the Fields. We've had a few off-year elections recently, one in Argentina and one in the United States. In Argentina, the party of President Javier Milei, an unapologetic libertarian, won a landslide victory for his party and a veto-proof plurality in the nation's legislature. In the United States, the party of President Donald J. Trump suffered a humiliating loss, with candidates of the Democratic Party winning across the board. In New York City, the avowed Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani, who ran on both the Working Families Party line and the Democratic Party line, won an outright majority, defeating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo running as an independent and Republican Curtis Sliwa. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom's Prop 50, a blatant proposal to gerrymander the state's congressional districts to elect 5 more Democrats next year, won. In New Jersey, Democratic Mickey Sherrill beat Republican Jack Ciattarelli. In Virginia, Democrat Jay Jones beat Republican incumbent Jason Miyares, despite leaked emails in which Jones fantasized about killing a Republican lawmaker and his family. Also in Virginia, Democrat Abigail Spanberger of the CIA, or formerly of the CIA, defeated Winsome Earl Sears for governor. It was pretty much a clean sweep for Democrats and a repudiation of the Trump brand of Republicans. For the last 2 years, the media, either clueless or diabolical or both, has attempted to paint images of Trump and Milei as being from the same political tribe. Both Trump and Milei have brash personas, but that's where the similarities begin and end. Milei supports free trade and is taking his chainsaw to Argentina's protectionist trade policies. Trump is a protectionist who has been dictating tariffs based mostly on his whims, unconstitutionally, as the Supreme Court will hopefully soon rule. Trump is rapidly anti-immigration. The only restrictions on immigration that Milei advocates are preventing the immigration of criminals and restrictions on immigrants using government-provided social services. Trump is enacting piecemeal socialist policies, like acquiring ownership interests in private companies. Milei is adamantly anti-socialist and anti-communist. He is privatizing government-owned businesses in Argentina. Trump is actively restricting Second Amendment rights. Milei fully supports the rights of the people to be armed. Trump advocates reduced or increased government spending and larger deficits. Milei has cut spending dramatically in his 2 years in office. Trump supports low-interest Federal Reserve monetary policy. Milei wants to disband Argentina's central bank. Milei supports legalization of drugs. Trump is actually murdering people in boats off the coast of Venezuela by claiming, without evidence, not to mention due process, that they are drug couriers. And I could go on. The takeaway is that the voters in the United States have rejected President Trump's sinister mix of fascist and socialist policies. Meanwhile, voters in Argentina have given a thumbs up to Milei's free market and small government reforms. Unfortunately, the only viable choices in the election cycle for those opposed to Trump have decidedly not been libertarian in any way, shape, or form. Democrat Socialist Mamdani's promises of rent freezes, free bus rides, free babysitting, and city-owned grocery stores will not be possible without the kind of tax increases that will create a mass exodus of the middle and upper classes that will have to pay for them. Perhaps that's the one ray of hope. Mamdani doesn't have a Federal Reserve to print up money to pay for all his promises. He'll be getting precious little help from the Trump administration. We may be about to witness a real-life experiment to see whether real socialism works. It won't. And Trump's tariffs and deportations won't work either. Maybe we'll see a Thomas Massey or a Rand Paul or a Justin Amash emulate in America what Javier Milei was able to accomplish in Argentina in just 2 short years. We can hope. That's this week's Report from the Fields. I'm Richard Fields. See you again next week.
You know, elections have consequences, right, John? And, you know, we're going to find out, for better or for worse, New York City is going to get exactly what they deserve, right? Who knows? Maybe maybe he'll be the exception, right? There's an exception to every rule. Maybe New York City will be the exception. I doubt it.
The only rule there's not an exception to is the disastrous consequences of communism and socialism. And Coleman Hughes penned a nice article for the Free Press where the headline was the solution for socialism is living under socialism. But once people live under it, they go, whoopsie.
Well, let's find out. Our first story here for tonight, John, that we're going to cover is New York City's congestion pricing is a huge something, is my title of the story, because we've got here a few months ago, Hochul, the governor of New York, she went out and she said that it's a huge success. It's reduced congestion, it's created, you know, more people walking, more people on public transit, which should tell you something that the real goal isn't actually to help you. It's to, you know, encourage you to live like they want you to live. But that's another discussion. But it is working exactly how they want it to, because as we look on the second bill, we've got this guy who had a couple $100 in tolls and fines, but because the system doesn't work, the fees and penalties and whatnot have accumulated to $36,000 for using the bridge and the tunnels and going into Manhattan. Yeah,
$3,000 in unpaid tolls resulted in a bill for $35,000
and
plus the original toll, so $36,906. So yeah, it's working from the perspective of the people who want master planning, less people in the city, more people in public transport. It's not working for the people who have to get there in a car or don't have much money. I think the big sales pitch from Hochul, whatever her name is that it's doing, like you said, exactly what they want, getting people out of cars, because cars are bad, and reducing congestion by 67,000 cars a day. But, you know, if people have cars because they want cars, and they want cars so they can get in cars and go places, and in New York, they don't want you to get in cars and go places.
Well, this is how they're raising taxes without raising taxes.
Yeah.
They're going to force you out of your car, or you're going to pay for everything else that everybody else wants to do. And the money has to come from somewhere, right? As Margaret Thatcher famously said, you eventually run out of other people's money, and this is how they're going to get their money.
Well, New York City is going to run out of other people's money very quick, because they, unlike if it was during the whoever was running the country while Biden was supposed to be president, or under Obama, the federal government is not going to write them a check.
No, but they can kick the can down the road until someone's in office that can. That's the long-term thing.
We shall see.
We shall see. But, you know, there's another thing about these elections, John. You know, why are we so surprised that deep blue areas are voting for deep blue candidates during an election season? There was no surprises in the election last week.
The one surprise was the guy running for attorney general. And attorney generals are supposed to be attorneys general.
Yeah, we covered that one last week.
Yeah,
we covered that one.
That one was surprising.
Yeah, that was surprising. But I don't even know. I wasn't surprised at all, John. I wasn't surprised at all. So anyway, there is a surprise, John. Bill Gates has backtracked on climate change, right? He recently come out and he says, "Oh no, the climate change dooms. It's not going to lead to humanity, isn't in demise. It's none of the doom and gloom stuff that people have been promoting for the last 70 years now."
He's been promoting primarily.
He's been promoting as well. Now he's been backing off of it because there comes a point where your predictions have to actually come true, and none of their predictions have actually come true. We've passed all kinds of dates.
Well, it's interesting that he's going to accomplish the same New World Order that he tried to accomplish under climate change and global warming, because he's now focusing on poor people need to be able to have more money so that they can resist or defend against the effects of climate change.
Yeah, but let's see what their desires to do. We've got, can we see clip graphic B? Because there's a second, there's a cost to this, right? And the secondary cost to this was the climate projects was destroying villages, right? In an effort to protect the climate, you know, these taxpayers actually paid to destroy villages. People who have been living this way, one with the environment for thousands of years maybe, have now had their way of life destroyed because a bunch of people from first world want to save the planet.
And this has happened over and over again. Example, trash in Africa, power in Africa. A lot of people in Africa and around the world, but an awful lot of people in Africa still cook their food using dung or wood. So they're going out and chopping trees down. And because they're starving, they go and kill endangered species and carry them on their backs, you know, 20 miles and cook them in the pot. And the reason that's going on is because the Greens, Sierra Club, and all the other minions that actually work for the deep left state don't want them having first generation electrical generation. They want them to jump immediately to solar and wind. So they prevent them from doing the intermediate steps. And they don't want them incinerating trash. So you have huge piles of trash all over the place they can't get rid of, mostly in Africa. And so, and then we ship our plastic bottles to other countries that are third world countries, and they don't recycle them because they're not allowed to. By our Greens won't let them put up incinerators. And so they shred them and dump them in the ocean. So all these things that they're doing, and it's like rhinos are endangered because of their horns. So a bunch of places started chopping their horns off. And the Greens in our country applied financial pressure to stop them from doing that, and now rhinos are facing extinction again. So it's just, I don't know what their goal is, but their goal is not their stated goal.
No, the stated goal isn't their goal.
Yeah.
But, you know, and the other question is, how'd they get away with it? Which leads us to our next question, our next story, is scientists have deliberately misrepresented sea level rise. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is, and it's not just sea level rise. Science. Right? It's not science. It's scientists, people who happen to work in the climate
Business?
in the climate business,
Yeah.
have been misrepresenting data for a long time. They've been doing things like, we'll count the sun as a constant, despite we know the fact that the sun is a constant. We'll ignore the fact that our magnetic field is dropping in intensity and is shifting spaces. We'll just pretend that has no impact. But a cow farting is going to destroy the climate, despite the fact that animals have been expressing methane for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years.
And in Belgium, their cows, they've been forcing people to give this basically poison to cows to cut down on methane production. The methane is a natural production of their digestive cycle. So they're giving them something that's actually poisonous. And cows are dying, they're not producing good milk, they're not, meat cattle aren't producing as much meat and all the rest of that stuff. So, but on the sea level rise, it's especially bad because what they've done is ignored, they have a record back in especially in places like England and the US and China and other places where people were sailors, and so they had to keep wonderful track of tide tables and know how high the water got at what times and how low. So they have 150 years of real tidal data, actual data, where they measured. And instead of using that, they threw in all these models about sea level rise and what's going to happen and what we think is happening and everything. But if they'd have just taken out the old library book with the tide tables from 150 years ago and look, they would see that everything they said was wrong.
Yeah. Well, and another thing, climate models are not data.
They're models.
They're models.
As I've said on this show so often,
many
people
times
are going to throw up I produced what I thought was a quite elegant model the other day, that Beyonce and Scarlett Johansson should be dating me simultaneously. But magically, despite the wonderfulness of that model, and you know, my wife has heard me say this, and she just rolls her eyes because she knows me. It doesn't work, and I think it's a wonderfully elegant.
Well, you know, John, some other people, if we can bring up slide B for this, some other people have had some wonderfully inventive fantasies, right? So now there's those same scientists who have lied about sea level rise and ignored all other kinds of data. It's now they're trying to say air pollution decreasing is actually increasing global warming. So our attempts at not creating air pollution are actually increasing global. So there's nothing, we literally can't do anything right, John. Our mere existence is a danger to the world.
Well, and that's their goal. They're Malthusians. They don't, is that the right term? They don't want less pollution. They want less people. And so if they force people to deindustrialize, fewer people can exist. You know, and then the ones that do are going to be cooking their food on dung and wood, or like in Belgium in World War II, they'll be splintering their furniture and warming themselves over a little can in their living room because they have no way to heat their houses.
Yeah, and this stuff is insane. Even Elon Musk the other day was talking about putting satellites in space to diffract sunlight to help with global warming. I'm going, do you understand how insane this is, right? Human beings going about their own natural business, kind of ignorantly just doing what human beings do, have accidentally changed the climate. So now our solution to that is to deliberately change the climate to something that benefits humans the most. One of those is different than the other, and worse than the other. And you know, I'm just saying, I think maybe we're focused on the wrong thing.
Well, and then all of the real scientists, not the ones who are part of the climate science business, the ones who are independent of it and are actual true scientists looking for the truth. What did Feynman say? Feynman, the great physicist. He said, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. And all of the good scientists say, especially about this complete and utter lie that man-made global warming is contributing to much more extreme weather events. Everybody has proven that to be wrong, but everybody uses it, like the Corps of Engineers are using it to try to destroy my beautiful river. So it's just lies, lies, and more lies, and just follow the money. These people are making a living off of this stuff.
There's lies, damn lies, and climate models, John.
Yes.
All right, well, speaking about lies, California has spent billions on homelessness, and it's literally only gotten worse. Well, part of the reason it's gotten worse is because you've attracted people to come here, right? I mean, the people who tend to live this way, we have nice weather anyway, so it's a draw to begin with. And now we've created the conditions where they can actually get paid to come and be homeless in California. And I have great sympathy for those who, for whatever reason, cannot function in modern society. I actually have great sympathy for them. You know, we used to call them vagrants and bums. But today's modern homeless is vastly different than that. There's a vastly different problem. And I don't know what to do about it, John. But clearly, neither does Sacramento, our politicians, or your local mayor and governor.
Yeah, and then I think yes, we do research, folks. The article that we read about a lot of this is there's been a lot of outright fraud. And in California, what happens whenever they find a problem or create a problem like drought or possible flood, they don't fix the problem. What they do is they spend a ton of money to reward their friends and punish their enemies, and they move the money around in a shell game, and the problem either stays exactly the same or in the case of homelessness, gets worse. And there is actually a simple fix to this that they refuse to do, which is fund mental health programs and get rid of minimum wage restrictions and all the rest of that, so people can actually get a low-paying job if they have no skills, and put the people who are incapable of making decisions for themselves in the mental institutions that we used to have in this country, that the left primarily went crazy about, because some of them had horrible conditions in them. I don't think any of them were as bad as freezing to death because you couldn't find a grate to sleep on in New York City, or
Skid Row down in L.A. Right?
Yeah.
It's
getting
terrible.
stabbed or burned in your sleeping bag, or dying of the drugs, because and as far as the drug addicts, if they're going to be addicts, fine, just have them come into the clinic, get their daily dose. The drugs shouldn't cost any more than any other crop. An ear of corn and an ear of cocaine or whatever they use.
Yeah, the homeless industrial complex is real, right? And a lot of that is straight out fraud. People handing money, politicians handing money to their friends so they can get some of it back. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay, we got like 6 minutes, John. So let's run through these last couple topics. Wikipedia's co-founder Larry Sanger hopes to rescue the platform from left-wing bias. I know they were going to create a what did they call that one? Not Gronkopedia, but
Wackopedia?
No, Elon was going to create one.
Grokopedia, or it's a word coined by Robert A. Heinlein in Stranger in a Strange Land, which basically means to get it, to understand. And Wikipedia started out pretty even-handed, but then, like all publications that you don't keep track of, the left took it over, and now it is left bias on articles is like 94%.
It's one of those accidentally on purpose things, right?
Yeah.
The people who empower you don't deliberately go off to hire a bunch of people who only think like them.
Well, they're not. The thing about Wikipedia is people don't get paid. Very few people get paid.
Yeah, but the top people do, and the top people are left wing, and so they end up just surrounding themselves with people who are like them.
Yeah.
And over the course of a decade, you end up with something that's no longer representative of reality.
Kind of like universities.
Universities, cable news, take your pick, right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, here's one for you, John. Amherst College is a perfect example of why we don't let academics run the country. And I've got this, I'm going to read their little statement. The academics, the faculty.
And the statement sounds great until you look at the reality of how they're interpreting it.
Well, it's not only that. It's meaningless. Anyway, resolve that in light of escalating threats to democracy and the rights of citizens and non-citizens in the United States. The faculty of Amherst College affirms its belief that those threats endanger our educational mission. We join with others who are also speaking out, defending freedom, democracy, and the rights of all, regardless of their political allegiances, religious, gender, and racial identities, or immigration status. It's a meaningless thing. It's okay. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, what it means is that in order to protect those people, they're going to now censor other people, and that's anybody on the right. It's that simple. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, we know they don't mean this because they didn't mean it 5 years ago.
No.
They only mean it from their perspective.
Yeah.
They don't mean to protect you and me, John.
No. I mean,
they
would probably burn us at the stake if they could.
Yeah. Would they put their show?
Democracy.
Would they put this show on in their college? Would they invite us to come and speak in a friendly environment?
I hope so. Amherst is pretty. It's a nice campus. Yeah.
So what do we do about it, John? I guess is the long-term question.
Just keep having the show like this. Keep speaking the truth, so it'll trickle down. Maybe defund public universities by whacking the ability of people to take down loans for $80,000 to get a $20,000 a year job.
This is one of the things I've been telling gamers. Gamers have been complaining about the business practices of gaming companies. And I tell them, but you keep giving them your money. What are they going to believe, your actions or your words? As long as you keep handing them money, they're going to keep doing what they're doing.
Only hand money to those businesses that treat you properly. And if none of them do, then don't give any of them money. Just play your old games for a while, right? Because it's the upgrades on the games where they make their money. Play the old games for a while, and then a gaming company will come out that does treat you fairly and honestly, and all your money will go there, and the other ones will have to toe the line.
They'll have to toe the line, or they go out of business, right? That's how it works. All right, going out of business, John, we're going to hop over the pond and talk about Britain again.
How much time we got left?
We got like 2 minutes.
Okay.
Britain hates prices, John. They love everything. They love to think everything is free.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem is it's not free. They're paying that price. They just don't know what the price really is.
They're fixing prices, adjusting prices, subsidizing one thing, punishing another. When you take the decisions of the marketplace out of the marketplace, all heck happens. Yes.
You no longer know how much things cost.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Or what they're worth.
Or what they're worth.
Yeah.
You know, how much society does or does not value something.
Mm-hmm.
How much you do or not value something.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have to, you know, decide how much this is worth to me, then
Mm-hmm.
of course you're going to do it all the time. It's like the National Health Service is collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially collapsing. You can no longer get the care over there that you need.
And you couldn't for a very long time.
Yeah. Now you just can no longer
it's
ignore it, right?
Such a part of the psyche in the UK that people defend it no matter what. And it's grossly inefficient, and it doesn't deliver on its promises.
And the worst thing is they're overpaying, you know, the NHS, the people who work there, and so the people who need to use the services.
People who work there actually are quite, compared to doctors in our country and nurses in our country, are grossly underpaid. But there are
Well, it's their
way
public
too
pensions.
many. Huh?
There are too many of the bureaucrats. We're not talking about the
Yeah,
doctors and
okay,
nurses.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
bureaucrats who run the system
Yeah.
are leeching,
Yeah.
are just continuing.
I think that's the definition of bureaucrat, is leech.
It's a definition of bureaucrat. We got a minute, John. Is there anything you want to leave us with here on this big old UK? You know, you've got a tight knot.
Well, no, on the UK, my mother-in-law, just personal story, my mother-in-law waited a year and a half for a knee and 8 months for a heart valve. We might complain about the system here, and it's grossly overpriced, and there's a lot of overhead, and bureaucrats and people in the industry are paid way too much. But you go somewhere because you got a bad heart, you're going to get a valve way quicker than 8 months.
Yeah,
That's simple.
It may cost more, but there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for me and John tonight. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you, John, for being here. Thank the crew for working so hard. But most importantly, thank you for watching every night. Good night, and please remember to love everybody.
Yes.